Hello there. Can you believe we are already at the end of February? Like, where did the time go? And if you're anything like me, January felt like a warm-up lap and February is a blur. And now you're wondering, like, oh my gosh, am I actually going to make progress on my goals? So here's the deal. Now is the perfect time to stop overthinking and start taking action. And so this episode is all about creating a real life plan, one that's scalable, sustainable, and actually works for your life. So, inside this episode, we're covering how to define success in this season of your business, what a high impact goal looks like, and what you should focus on in the upcoming month, a step by step method to break down your goal into simple weekly action steps, and why flexibility and scalability are the key to long term success. So grab your planner or a fresh Google Doc, whatever works for you, and let's map out a plan that actually gets you results without burnout. Hi there, and welcome back to the Crush to Rush podcast. Can you believe it? We are almost to the end of February. Like, how did that happen? February is such a quick month, and I feel like it flies by. So if you're anything like me, felt like January was like a warm up lap, and then February is like, okay, I'm kind of finding my groove. Like, we're into 2025, but like, where did all the time go? So here's the deal. As we wrap up February, it's time to really start to scale things up a bit, right? So we're going to stop tweaking and thinking and start doing. And so today's episode is all about a real life plan, putting a real life plan into action that is scalable and thinking about how to make it life first. So you've heard me say that word a lot on the podcast in the last couple of months. And so this is a plan that doesn't just sit in your planner and collect dust. It's really helping you put the things that you want to do first and then make your business work around that. And so I'm using the end of February to say, okay, this is your nudge to recalibrate, focus a little bit, and let's make the rest of the year work for you. So let's talk about why February is such a sweet spot. I mean, one, when I think of February, it's my birthday month, so I get excited. But I also think about like Valentine's Day and hearts and flowers, and that is kind of motivating a little bit. But also in Ohio, like you're starting to see like little peaks of spring, right? Like you're starting to see like a little bit of the daffodils coming up and like the weather's just a little bit better and you're starting to see like little peaks of the sun. And so by now, I think the new year, new energy has probably worn off. If I'm being honest, I don't feel like I ever felt that this year. And that's not a bad thing, but this is where we're just being real, right? So the hype of new year is gone. And it's time to focus on like what can we actually do to move the needle forward where it feels good and you get to have a life too. And so here's what I know about this. It's not about having a perfect plan, hard to say fast, but it's about having a realistic one, right? Which is why so often I talk about planning things in 90 days because so much happens in a short amount of time. And so we really want to think about how to align things with your goals support your life. And then you build a business around that, which gives you space to breathe. And so if you're following along this far, you don't have to wait for the perfect time to start because it doesn't exist. We're just going to start right now. You just need to take the first step. So when we talk about how to build a scalable business plan that puts life first, that actually works, the first step that you're going to do is define what success looks like for you right now. So before I can give you any tools or anything else, it's really important to define what that looks for you right now. Not what it looked like last year, not what every entrepreneur you follow on Instagram is doing, but think about what does success look like for you right now? What do you need for yourself in this season, in the next 90 days? What do you want your life to look like at the end of the next 90 days? Not at the end of the year. Let's just talk about 90 days, right? Like we don't need to think about what we're doing next Christmas. We just need to think about, hey, in the next 90 days, what do I want this to look like for me? And what do you need to prioritize? Is it revenue? Is it family? Is it health? Is it time freedom? Usually one will like pull itself up, right? So maybe success looks like adding an additional 5K a month in revenue so that you can outsource your social media or hire childcare. Number two, it might be, as an example, building a sustainable system so you're not working evenings and weekends. Or maybe it's simply finding time for yourself so you can go to yoga or coffee on Friday morning with a friend. And you can see how I made the goals life focused, right? I want to do this because it gives me this. I want to do this because it gets me that. So clarity on what you want really sets the tone for everything. The second thing that I want you to do, because you are listening to this most likely in real time, is set a goal for the next month. So I'm recording this to air at the end of February. Pick one goal for March. If you try to tackle everything at once, right, it's the fastest way to burn out. So instead, I want you to focus on one high impact goal for March. Earlier in the podcast, a couple episodes ago, we talked about like what are those high impact activities? So pick one, pick just one for March, right? The goal is that you have one business high impact goal and then life fits around the rest. So as an example, if revenue is your focus for March or the next month, then maybe your goal is pitching your services to 5 new people, right? Maybe it's current clients that you're following up with. That's super, super simple. If audience growth is your priority, hint, you should download the Ditch the Social Drama podcast because it's going to tell you how to do that. That's hollymariehaines.com/social. But maybe your goal is launching a new lead magnet or growing your email list. So think about what can you do to do that. So we're taking that like high impact activity and we're breaking it down into a step, right? Last example, if systems are your focus, what would be one goal that you could create to maybe update or automate your client onboarding process or your client offboarding process? The point is you want to pick one thing that will have the biggest impact on your business and commit to it. Everything else can wait. And I know I'm making it seem really, really simple and we're doing like planning speed dating in 15 minutes, but it really is that simple. Think about what do you want to do? What do you want to be? How do you want to feel in the next 90 days? And then what's the one goal from a business perspective that you can focus on? Because the reality is you're going to have other goals from like a personal perspective or a career perspective. And so if you pick one goal from a business perspective, the chances of you getting it done are really, really high. So now we're going to take that one business goal and we're going to break it down into weekly action steps because guess what? There's 4 weeks in a month most of the time. And this is where the magic happens. This is where you're taking that one business goal and you're breaking it down into bite-sized weekly action steps because goals are overwhelming. And when you break them into steps, into manageable pieces, you'll actually get them done. So let's say your goal in March is to launch a new lead magnet because you got so much information from the Ditch the Social Drama podcast. And now you're going to break it down into week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Week 1, you're going to brainstorm the topic and outline the content. Week 2, you're going to create the lead magnet, whether it's a PDF, a video, or a checklist, because we know that batching works so much better. Week 3, we're going to write the landing page and the email sequence. And week 4, we're going to promote it on social media. So by the end of March, you have hit your goal without feeling like you had to do it all at once. And you're able to focus on other things because at the same time that you're launching a lead magnet, if you're like me, March is a really big season for dance in our family. There's lots of activities. We're gone a lot of weekends. It's spring break, right? So let's think about how you want to focus on all those other things. And now you know, hey, each week I just have to do one of these steps. So if these prompts help you, our planner will actually help you do this and walks you through all of this. It's just hollymariehaines.com/planner. If you're in the club, I walk you through this every single month. But I wanted to pull it to the forefront. I feel like this is a really important topic to talk about. And so just reflecting on what we've done so far, really thinking what does success look like in the next 90 days, picking one business goal and then breaking it down into actionable steps. And then the last piece of this is like really focus on scalable activities, right? So now that you have your goal, let's talk about how to make it scalable because we're not here to work more. We're here to work smarter, right? Scalable activities are the ones that create results without you constantly having to show up. So here's some ideas. Automate where you can. I'm a big fan of automated email sequences, automated follow-ups, right? You want to nurture your audience while you sleep. I'm also a big fan of repurposing content. We've talked about that a lot on the podcast. But if you already have written a blog post or recorded a podcast on a similar topic, turn that into a lead magnet, turn that into social media content. So really thinking about how can I work smarter, not harder in this season. And then earlier this month, I talked a lot about passive income opportunities. And so thinking about your goals and then thinking about, does it mean that I have to do the work or are there things that I can leverage like evergreen offers or other opportunities that we talked about in episode 507 that you can launch with minimal effort. So make sure that as you're thinking about your goals, you're thinking about scalable activities so that the work that you're doing now will continue to pay off later. And then last but not least, the last step in how to plan a scalable year, which is really focusing on 90 days so that you have a life first business plan, is make space for flexibility because life happens. I talked about in an earlier episode this month how I get migraines, kids get sick. Some days you just need a break. There's a lot going on in the world. And so your plan needs to have flexibility. So how do you build space in your schedule? Always schedule a buffer day, right? Leave a day or an hour or two in your calendar that's not the weekend where you don't schedule anything. That is step number one for this. Step number two is create a CEO day. A CEO day is when you are really stepping into that strategy role of your business. A day can be an hour, right? But the CEO week schedule is inside our planner. It's just at hollymariehaines.com/planner. But think about how you can schedule buffer days. And then next, really set realistic timelines, right? So I have on my calendar usually every other week or every 2 or 3 weeks to record podcasts. And typically I can get 2 or 3 done in an hour if I'm ready, right? If I have them ready to go, I've got them mapped out, but I always give myself 2 hours because life happens. Maybe I run into issues beforehand setting up my microphone. Maybe my girls are homesick, right? This gives me a buffer. So when you are blocking off activities, make sure to set realistic timelines. Give yourself extra time. The worst that can happen is you have free time. And then prioritize time for yourself. I joke when I teach our planning party that I will put shower, wake up. Well, that's the wrong order. Wake up, shower, Pilates, walk. I put every single thing that I'm doing inside that hourly block because it takes a minute, right? You can't assume that showering is just going to happen, at least in my house. You've got to figure out when that's going to happen and how that works around the rest of your day. So block off time for activities that refill your energy, whether it's yoga or reading or just stepping away from your desk. We were talking about walking and listening to music. So remember that you have to have a plan that accounts for real life. And the way to do that is to plan for real life. So give yourself grace to adjust as needed. Set those realistic timelines, give yourself extra time, but also make sure that you are blocking off things that you need to do. So a few years ago, I would map out these huge color-coded plans for the year. I probably showed them on my stories. And then life would happen and I would have to move things all around. A kid would get sick, I would get buried in client work or whatever. And so then it just felt impossible. And so what I've learned is simple plans are the most effective, but really focusing in on 90 days at a time and one business goal at a time. I take that one business goal, I break it into weekly steps, and then I leave room for flexibility. That way I get my business stuff done and then the life piece is there and I'm actually doing it. So as we wrap up February, my challenge for you is to get a real life plan into action. Define what success looks like for you, pick a really high impact goal for your business for the next month, and create a simple, flexible plan to make it happen. Because it's not about doing everything, it's doing what matters the most. So I hope this episode resonated with you. It's a really simple way to think about planning the next 90 days. And I feel like simple is what makes it work. So I would love it if this episode helped you plan. If you're planning for the next months ahead, hit reply in the show notes, come send me a DM, and keep dreaming of that big business that is going to work for you, right? It's going to give you the time to do what you love the most. And remember, it's not about doing everything. It's about doing the right thing at the right time. And as you know, you don't have to do this alone. So if you are ready to build a scalable life first business and want the tools, the plan, the support, and the strategies, including our monthly planning party, head on over to the Crush the Rush Club. It is your go-to community with so many amazing practical strategies that are going to help you really put this scalable plan into action. So I will see you next week.